How's the Detroit Sports Podcast going?
This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Hey everybody, this is Freddie Cohen of ESPN Radio. When I'm not talking about breaking news or breaking news on ESPN Radio, I'm always a fan and listen to the Detroit Sports Podcast, and so should you.
Thanks, everybody, for finding us. The latest edition of the Doc and Jock podcast, ready to deliver. We got a lot to get to. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Joining me, my cousin Adam, the Jock Strozinski. What's up, cuz?
Before we get started, I wanted to know how you felt about the NFL basically legislating the kickoff out of the NFL.
Is that what happened?
Out of football. That's where they're going. Tuesday night. They sat there and the owners approved a new rule for kickoffs. You can't have a running start on the kicking team. You got to have basically everybody lined up across the line. You got to have two guys outside of the numbers. You've got to have two guys on each side. You got to have two guys basically inside the hash marks, and you can't do any wedge blocking. They've done away with that a long time ago. But basically, if you're receiving the ball, everybody has to line up like 10 yards off it, and you can't stagger anybody, and nobody can be deeper. The only deep people you can have are the guy who's returning it, and then you've got like two extra guys back there. That's it. It's just they're trying to do away with it, and I predict in the next, I don't know, maybe 5 years or so, there will be no more kickoffs. It's going to be like playing backyard football. Here, we scored a touchdown, you get to take the ball out at the 20. That's basically what it's going to be.
I'm okay with that because I know people look at it and go... It's
one of the most exciting plays in football.
Exactly. That's the con, is that it's very exciting. You take out those specialists that are able to help the team out with getting those return yards and helping the team, start on the 40-yard line. And it is an important aspect of special teams. But in the end, right now, everybody that's looking at football is trying to do as much as you can for safety. And that's a really violent collision that can be done without, just based on the way that the rules can be made. So I'm okay with it, in terms of for the greater good of those athletes and things like that. You do have a lot of concussions that happen on kickoffs because it's that violent contact, that running start and things like that. So I'm okay with it. What I really would love them to do away with is that same old notion where a touchdown is scored, they go to commercial, they come back, they do the kickoff, then another commercial.
Oh, you want less commercials?
I want less commercials.
That'd be great.
Because after a touchdown, basically, there's maybe a good 12, 15 minutes where it's a lull, and maybe you can just do like an in-game one after the kickoff and just kind of streamline it and get the game around 2.5 hours, 3 hours.
You ever watch a game on DVR? You can
you're happy. Yes.
through it so fast.
Yes.
It's amazing how quickly you can get through an NFL game on DVR.
It is way better. Really, in life, everything's better with the DVR. You just kind of go through a little bit faster and things like that. But there's, you can't discount the live experience. But I think you and I can agree throughout the course of the podcast, in the time that we've talked about it, the NFL has made so many rules that we could argue really haven't helped the game. If they just would have left it alone and just kind of ridden the, tide of negativity about concussions, if they just kind of rode it out a little bit and maybe just were a little bit patient instead of trying to change all these rules, the game was pretty good 5 years ago.
Oh, dude, I thought the game was great.
Right?
I'm going to be really interested this year. The one thing two things I'm looking forward to and kind of I really want to watch how they develop, especially as the season goes on, is they've tried to correct the catch rule. All right, so I want to see how that's going to work out and how that's going to be implemented. If we can just get everybody to agree, what a catch is. A catch is a catch. It's a catch. It will always be a catch. You don't have to sit there and completely legislate what a catch is and add all these rules that define what a catch is. You know what a catch is. If it's a catch, it's a catch. Everybody knows. And I think the way the NFL has gone, especially with some of the higher profile non-catches that have been just to go down in history. I mean, everybody remembers Calvin Johnson in Chicago. It was a catch, but they ruled it not a catch. And it's all about the process, and they've made it so complicated. It's going to be fun to see if they can get out of their own way and if a catch can be a catch. And I want to see how they're going to legislate players lowering their head or the head-to-head collisions or the targeting penalties, because I don't want our football games to be stopped just because we've got to go to a video replay to see if a guy actually intended to smack heads with another player. This is going to be, I see just problems ahead. I just see this taking forever and just kind of killing the momentum of the football game. And that's one thing that's great about football is you get a quarterback like Drew Brees back there. He's got a running back like Alvin Kamara, and he can just dink and dunk, and he's got his wide receivers just running up and down the field. You kind of get into a little bit of a rhythm. Now you're going to add this targeting penalty and the head-to-head collisions. Next thing you know, we'll be stopping the game, and we'll be going to replays, and those are going to take 5 to 10 minutes, and it's going to totally kill the momentum of the game.
Yeah, with football, everyone is excited for the season to start up, but behind the scenes, with the 24-hour nature of the NFL Network and everybody looking at the offseason and what it does, I think a lot of people are also looking at what are the administrators actually doing to help the game, and are they actually doing, are they making decisions that are actually hurting the game? Because Roger Goodell is being paid $40 million to advance the game every year, $40 million a year to advance the game, and it seems like his tenure has been rife with arguments, discontent with the players and the owners. And so he has done a lot of good in terms of expanding the game and bringing money into the game. But in terms of the rules and his ultimate power, you could argue he could do a lot better job. And this whole notion of the NFL wanting to tap into the gambling market when they were actually on the other side of the rule is really off-putting to a lot of people. Yeah. It's like, you were against it, so why do you want a slice of it?
All of a sudden, it's okay.
Now it's good. Now we want to pitch Congress and try to get a slice of it.
The NFL was one of the staunchest people opposed to gambling.
Sorry, you lost, and now you're on the other side. You don't get a slice. Come on now. But like in anything else, everybody wants a slice of the pie, right?
That's right.
Everybody wants a slice of the pie. Because you realize this is episode 250?
I know.
250 of this shit.
When I was writing everything up, because those who don't know, and if this is your first time ever tuning in, John and I do a lot of communication during the week, talking about stuff like the topic we're going to open up with. I didn't even think it was an issue until me and you started talking through text message. And I was like, well, apparently it's an issue. I didn't realize it was, but apparently it is. So it's got to go on the sheet. So I was putting the sheet together. I was like, man, we're already on 250?
Right?
250? We've done 250 of these back to back to back to back 250 times.
And when I look back, and what I really get excited about is when new podcasts pop up, because basically when we started in 2013, the reason we started it was, I said to you, cuz there's not a lot. There may be one that's even thinking about doing podcasts on a semi-periodic basis. I said to you, my pitch to you was, I see a hole in the market in Detroit. It's 2013. There aren't a lot of weekly podcasts that can be done every single week that's really good and can bring it. And so that was the reason why we did it. We're like, I think there's a spot for it. And so now, guess who started a podcast? The Detroit Lions.
Oh,
they started their own podcast with Tori Petrie, first guest Dan Orlovsky. And you could say, well, now everybody's doing it. People are writing all about it. But back in 2013, there was only really the big ones. There was nobody locally that we could say, hey, let's follow it in terms of the sports realm. You know, thank goodness for Dennis Farrell and Adam Carolla and all the influencers, and thank goodness for all those that were doing sports radio. But at the time, in terms of podcasting, there weren't many that were doing it every single week that actually had the vision of like, let's just try and do a good show and bring on big guests and talk sports in an unfiltered way. Like, there are podcasts, but there's nobody dropping all the F-bombs and the stuff that we've said on the air. There's nobody doing it with that.
If you go back and you listen to some of those very first ones,
man,
super raw.
They're raw.
So I think we tried being a little bit too raw.
Yeah, exactly. That was our goal. Let's just say stuff just because we could say it. I think that was our selling point, was like, we could just say it. But now, every time a new one comes in, you look at it, it's like, no, we've set the standard. We've done a lot of good things. And now everyone's doing it. Even the Detroit Lions have now stepped into it in 2018, and they're doing it, and it's fun. And everyone recognizes, look, it's just a verbal platform. We can have a good time with it. I laugh every single week. I look forward to doing it. 250 in, it really doesn't feel like it at all. We have fun with it now, and we hit another barrier. An athlete playing in college football stepped foot in this office, and I love the video. I mean, literally, I can't stop pushing it, where he came in and was like, and I have it on tape, and I released it on our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast. He came in, and I'll ask you about it, but he came in and he said, this is not what I thought.
Right.
He came in and the video was like, you guys got, sponsorship stuff on the wall. You got all these newspapers. I really should have asked him, what did you think was going to happen? Was it going to be like a couple chairs, me in a suit? I wonder what he thought.
Think it was like a dark cave or something. Man.
Yeah, like a rickety project. I just really should have asked him what he thought it was. But I just was so excited that Karan Higdon, running back of Michigan, came in and was just like, what is this? This is sweet. He looked to his friend and was like, I think I want to do this, because I told him the setup is not that different. Everybody should be really doing it. But in the end, if you look at it, the other podcasts, they're not really releasing videos from their studios as we are, because we keep taking the next step and doing things. And I do believe we are trailblazing the podcast stuff around town, and a lot of people are doing it. But at the same time, we're proud of our digs, and that's why every single day we're showing them. We're like, look, we built an office. We have the ability to do stuff with your support, and it makes it fun. 250 down, taking next steps. And I mean, look, last week, a week in May, we had Adam Carolla and Karan Higdon.
Right.
The same week.
It's a big week.
It was a big week. It was a big week for the network. It took us again to the next step, and I think people are recognizing, okay, they got their place. They're in the mix. And even others have noticed, too, when we've done some things that they question. They go, what are you guys doing? That tells me that people are peeking in to what Doc and Jock are up to, baby. So high five to us. I'm proud, like I said, through the ups and downs of the network, self high five, baby. It's been fun. 250 down, hopefully another 250 to go, man. I can't wait for this one. Talking Michigan, talking Detroit Lions, and then we'll finish off the podcast with some news regarding Larry Nassar and Michigan State. Before we talk about Charles Woodson, I do want to kind of say, kicking off the podcast, I'm not as passionate because Romeo Weems had an opportunity to go to State. From all that I read, 4-star athlete, I thought that, man, he's coming to State. It looks good. I mean, Tom Izzo, he can play his senior year. He can be Mr. Basketball. Tom Izzo can finally get a real big class with a 4-star guy. And then Blair Glover, friend of the podcast, went out there, did a video and kind of peeked into it, and he chose DePaul. He could have if he chose Kentucky. DePaul.
Why? Chicago?
He felt like it was a place for him to maybe have a better path to the NBA.
I gotcha.
But I think it might be the wrong choice. I mean, you could get a path to the NBA with Tom Izzo, but again, then you start reading like, look, the perception now is that Tom Izzo maybe is not helping the guys raise their stock, that people don't go and elevate right now. And so I'm like, man, Romeo, come back. But he went to DePaul and we missed out. But it's okay. We'll talk about Michigan State and their foibles at the end of the podcast, but I'm sitting here going, man, Romeo Weems should have been a Michigan State Spartan. That would have been a fun day. But it didn't happen. We move on. We be positive. We say, it's okay. Things are going to happen. There might be another recruit that comes in and
It's all about perspective, baby. We're talking about it before we did the show.
Exactly.
It's all about perspective.
It's all about perspective. I get a chance to talk to you over the next hour and a half, so it'll be a fun time. So obviously, right now, the talk of everyone around town that supports college athletics is Michigan. And they're talking about, what's the value of these trips? When are they going to get to winning? When are they going to really hyper-focus on the results on the field? 2018 is going to be huge for Michigan football. And Charles Woodson kind of not feeling the swag. He's not feeling the love, and his ego, I think, got the best of him in terms of what's happened in the last 2 months. So this story started off, for those that don't know, Charles Woodson gave a commencement speech, and he was talking, and he obviously brought up, the Ohio State game, and he guaranteed victory in 2018. And then, obviously, those that saw it followed up with it and said, wait a minute, do you still want to talk about your thoughts on Ohio State? And he's like, yeah, we don't talk about it enough. This is Michigan. And he's looking at it and he's saying, out of 14 games, we've lost 13 of them. This is not emphasized enough. And it just so, happened to coincide with a time where I actually got to talk to a Michigan athlete. And he kind of said, well, it is important, but more importantly, the reason why Michigan is not competitive with Ohio State is not because it's not emphasized. The talent is not exactly where it needs to be, because Ohio State is a superpower. Ohio State has an amazing top 5 coach that is bringing in elite talent. They let go of a class. The next guy up is amazing, just as amazing, and could be a starter anywhere else. So Charles Woodson, I sense from the psychological side, is kind of being, his ego was bruised when you talk it, and when he looks and evaluates what's going on with Ohio State. But for him to come out and to make a point and to put it out there, he's like, Michigan is going to defeat Ohio State this year. That's a tough one. That's a check that maybe Michigan can't cash. But I respect him for saying it, but the notion
I just wish he would have got the days right.
Yeah, exactly.
He was a little bit off in his timeline.
Exactly.
But it's cool.
I wish, and I think a lot of fans are starting to say it, the time for talking really is over.
It is over.
The time for talking, the time for hype is over. We don't want to focus on trips. We don't want to focus on Jim Harbaugh's personality. It's time at Michigan to really focus on wins and losses.
If you're a Michigan fan, this is what it comes down to. You've got to start to take care of your business. I'm so sick and tired as a Michigan fan of just being overhyped and being oversold. And then when the season starts, we end up with an 8-4 season, and we're like, okay, cool, maybe we'll go to the Outback Bowl. What? I don't want to go there. I want to go to Indianapolis, and I want to compete in the Big Ten championship game. And from there, I want to get invited to the college football Final Four, and I want to sit there and go play for all the marbles. That's what I want. I'm tired of it. And look, I understand what Charles Woodson is saying. In order to be the man, you kind of got to beat the man, right? I mean, we have a segment on this podcast that starts with that. Ohio State is the man. You know, as good as Michigan State has been in recent years, Ohio State is still the man. It doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying? You've got to go ahead and you've got to beat Ohio State in order to get to your final destination, which is Big Ten championship, college football playoff, and then national title. And that's kind of the way it goes. So I get what Charles Woodson is saying, but I think that his viewpoint's a little bit antiquated. Back in the day, all you really had to do was beat Ohio State. Michigan State wasn't a ton of competition. Michigan State every now and then would bubble up and they'd burst your bubble if you were Michigan. Wisconsin was okay. It was no big deal. And then after that, what? What was it? It was always Michigan and Ohio State. That's what the Big Ten was essentially founded on. It was those two schools and then everybody else. Right now, here today, every game you play matters. Every single game you play. If Michigan goes into this season and they lay a dud against Notre Dame, your season's basically ruined. Good luck getting into the Big Ten championship game. I know it's not a Big Ten game, but good luck. And good luck getting any type of the coaches poll, the AP poll, or the BCS poll to take you serious if you lay a dud against Notre Dame. And that's your first game of the season. So good luck with it. At this point, every game counts. Every game matters. You need to treat every game like it's Ohio State. And I understand that, hey, if you want to, every week you want to work something in for Ohio State because they are your biggest rival. I get it. And Michigan State fans, I'm sorry. Ohio State is the biggest rival. And look, Michigan State, you take us to task a lot, and you've done it a lot the last couple years. So I applaud you. But nobody really gets you as angry as an Ohio State fan. Nobody gets you as fired up as that game against Ohio State. When the schedule comes out, you look over the schedule, the first game you go to is the Ohio State game. You want to see what day, what time it is. And then after that, it's probably Michigan State. And then you're going to see when the first game is and what time that is. And that's just how I do it. That's how I am. All right. And I think I'm a pretty level-headed Michigan fan. All right. I call a spade a spade. When you suck, you suck. When you're good, you're good. Charles has to take a step back. He's got to realize what's going on here. College football, the landscape has changed. The way they do things is different now. You can't just go ahead and beat Ohio State and then find yourself playing in a Rose Bowl and get half of a national championship. It doesn't work that way anymore. It's not the same. While I understand what he says, and I totally respect it because I love Chuck. I love Chuck. Chuck is like my favorite Michigan Wolverine of all time. When he played for Green Bay, I loved him. When he played for Oakland, I loved him. You know, I always had hopes and dreams that he would come and play for the Lions. You know what I'm saying? It was something that I always wanted. I love Charles Woodson, one of my favorites of all time. He's right up there with Steve Eisman with me. He's got to realize, though, things are different. The landscape is different.
You want me to take you down memory lane?
Let's go.
Okay, so remember when Jim Tressel took over for John Cooper?
Yes.
Okay, so he comes in. Do you remember one of the early things he did in that press conference?
Yes.
He had the clock.
Yep.
He brought up the clock and he says, you know what, 10 months from now, we got an opportunity to play one of the biggest rivals, our biggest rival in the world. It's Michigan.
And you'll be proud when we go to Ann Arbor or whatever he said.
Exactly. And so he did it. That first year he went 7-5, but they defeated Michigan in upset fashion 26-20. And everybody remembers that kickoff going, whoa, this guy's talking about it that early. But people said that reflect back on it, they go, well, Jim Tressel made it a point. And so I do think I can understand the historical relevance of what Charles Woodson's trying to do. He's trying to say, look, let's do it. Let's talk about it now. Let's bring up the fact that our goal is to beat Ohio State. We've been getting our ass kicked for the better part now of a decade and a half. And we got to get back on the winning side. But the issue is this. I mean, Jim Tressel, if you look at it, first year goes 7-5, next year goes 14-0, wins a national title. So Jim Harbaugh's not even at the level of a Jim Tressel at this point in time. And you guys' expectation is now we got Shea Patterson. Let's go. We're going to get back to that. And I do think it's a little bit overhyped, but I think this go around, with the University of Michigan, what they have. If Shea Patterson can do some things, if Karan Higdon and Chris Evans can be that stabilizing force as running backs, if the offense can be more consistent and avoid injuries, I do think there's a chance for 8 to 10 wins again this year. But in terms of the ultimate prize, I think that's really tough. And I think in terms of defeating Ohio State, it's really tough right now because of the head start that they had. I mean, when you go down to a team in terms of a rivalry over the course of a decade, that means recruiting is different. That means Michigan is lacking probably confidence that they actually can be in the game. But just go back and focus on the last game. They were up 14-0. They were in the game. You lost to a backup quarterback. But, the tough part is, you know what Charles Woodson's actually asking? He's asking this Michigan team to go on the road in Columbus with a first-year quarterback in that system in Shea Patterson and go out there and win on the road.
Right.
So good luck. I think it might have behooved Charles to maybe just wait a year, because if Shea Patterson's good this year, I think going forward you can add around him and then have success. Maybe not in 2018, but get that full class in, get some more pieces rolling along, then you have an opportunity to make that statement at home. I think it's unwise to make that assumption on the road. Come on now, I think it's silly. It really is.
I mean, look, let's just take a quick, brief look at what Michigan's got to do this year. They've got to go on the road at OSU. They've got to go on the road, play Michigan State. They've got to travel to Northwestern, which is always a tough game because they're well coached, and it's usually a team that will give you a fight. And their very first game, they kick off at Notre Dame. Now, they're going to also bring in Wisconsin, and they're going to bring in Penn State. That's a really tough schedule. It's going to be difficult. So what Charles wants, I get it. All right? I totally understand. But going, whatever it is, only winning one game and it being OSU, that doesn't cut it anymore. Do you know what I'm saying? It's not how it is. Just the landscape has changed. Michigan fans have to realize that the landscape has changed, and I don't think they want to realize that. And I think that's a lot of pressure to sit there and dump on these guys. You don't think these guys want to beat Ohio State? You don't think these guys want to sit there and go and play in the college football playoff and represent the Big Ten and win a Big Ten championship? All of those guys want that. Karan Higdon essentially said as much to you. I mean, they all have goals. They know what the goals are. You got to do A, B to get to C. And A, it's beating Ohio State. You got to do it. But I think in the end, the main goal is to win a national championship. That's what it is. That's what it's been since the BCS has changed.
What was your reaction when the first line came out in a Vegas sportsbook and you saw Michigan as a 7-point underdog to Notre Dame? I was almost shocked. I was like, well, and some people have said, well, early lines tend to favor good teams and things like that. And closer to when the game actually takes place, you'll probably see it, probably Notre Dame be a 3-point favorite.
Yeah.
But I would take that all day. I think Michigan +7, like Steve Day said, host of the Michigan podcast, he said it's like stealing money. Take Michigan +7 all day. If you can get down to Vegas and the sports book that had it, go down there and bet Michigan +7 all day. You should be pretty happy.
I was surprised by it.
That's a big line, right?
It is. I mean, especially if you look at what Notre Dame lost last year. I mean, they lost 2 of their best offensive linemen, and Michigan's returning a ton of guys. This will be one of the first years that Jim Harbaugh has a highly recruited quarterback. He didn't recruit him, but he's a highly recruited quarterback. I mean, if you look at what he's done with these teams that he's had, really good defense, wins a lot of games, decent enough offensive line, talented wide receivers, and good running backs. I'm not going to say elite, but he's had decent running backs for the most part. And then look at the quarterback play. I mean, how much did you think you were going to win with a Wilton Spate? Do you know what I'm saying? A Jake Rudock. Iowa didn't want Jake Rudock, but he turned into something here, and that was cool. Wilton Spate had an okay year before last year. Last year was a dumpster fire. And then look, it was like quarterback carousel, And yeah, on that carousel were guys that Jim Harbaugh recruited. So you would have expected them to be a little bit more talented and expected a little bit more from them. But it was like duck, duck, goose with quarterbacks last year. This will be the first year that he has a highly rated quarterback, a guy that pretty much everybody out there wants. You can go through the top 10 teams in all of the nation, and I guarantee you 7 out of those 10 teams want that quarterback. Do you know what I'm saying? And I don't think that's stretching it too much, and I don't think that's bloviating or going over the top with it. I think that's legit. So them being a 7-point underdog early, yeah, I'm a little bit taken aback by it. All that being said, I guess I kind of understand it. I mean, if you look at the way Michigan performed last year, and they've had some turnover, especially with that coaching staff. Now you look at what's going on with Notre Dame. Notre Dame will also be hosting the game. So, yeah, I guess I can understand it, but yeah, I was a little bit taken back by it. I mean, I thought it was different, that's for sure. But I think you're right, and I think Steve's right. By the time this game gets ready for kickoff, it'll probably be a 3-point game.
You could almost even argue that Michigan might be the favorite by then.
They could be.
When the news starts rolling out that Shea Patterson is god of quarterbacks.
I don't know
that
about
he's
that.
the greatest thing since Tom Brady.
We'll see.
Shea Patterson, I think, will be so overhyped that we will be talking
Is he gonna
about
be the September Heisman?
He will be the September Heisman after the
He'll be
first
like
pass.
Denard, eh?
He'll be the first pass that they show on video. Shea Patterson's it, man. And I think,
hey, look, no spring game. So
Yeah.
a lot of the hype on this guy has been kind of dampened down a little bit because nobody has really seen him. Nobody's really seen anything because we had no spring game here for Michigan.
Right.
So yeah, I think you might be right. You might be right.
Shea Patterson, according to some publications, might be already the odds-on favorite to be the number one pick in the 2019
Oh my
draft.
God. I don't think they know what they're talking about.
What are you talking about? Athlon has Michigan ranked 5th
Yes.
and Michigan State ranked 12th. So
Yes.
I think people, when they looked at that, they go, based on what? And Michigan fans go, based on the fact we got great running back, we got Shea Patterson, we got Jim Harbaugh, based on myth. But at the same time,
based on myth.
You know what I heard for the first time on talk radio?
Way to work that in there. Based on myth.
Based on myth, I heard a female come in and call Jim Harbaugh overrated. I literally fell off the floor when I heard that. A female called in and said, I'd like Jim Harbaugh to actually do some stuff on the field. And that's where Michigan fans, I think, are kind of afraid. Michigan right now, and we've talked about it on the podcast, Michigan Nation is split. You got those that are like, we good. We back. Jim Harbaugh, give him a class. Year 4, we good. He's had 10-win seasons. He hasn't had his quarterback. They basically dumped all their anger onto the terrible quarterbacks that are no longer there. And Shea Patterson, baby, to the rescue. We good. And then you got the other half that are like, dude, can you please show us some results? And you guys are battling. And I saw some hilarious tweets and comments that said, look, we really don't care if we go to Paris. We don't care if we go to Italy. We don't care if we're going to South Africa. We just want to book a ticket to Indianapolis. That's it. And you got fans going, stop that. Stop bickering back and forth. What's happened to us as Michigan fans? And Michigan fans are divided. That's the way it is. Michigan fans right now are divided between those that fully unconditionally love and support Jim Harbaugh. They're the 5th team in the country. They're the best. They're a team that's going to go to Indy. They're going to win the national title. And then you got those that said, we're sitting here waiting for something that's going to be productive. When are we going to have an undefeated season? When are we going to be like Jim Tressel year 2, go 14-0 undefeated, get to that Big Ten tournament, get to that Big Ten title game.
When is Michigan going to be like Michigan State? You don't even got to say like Jim Tressel. When are they going to be like Michigan State? Come on, go win a big game. Go to somebody's house and knock them out. Win a big game, and then go to Indianapolis and win that game. And then get into the college football playoff. Do something Michigan State has done. Hey, Michigan fans, you haven't done it yet. You haven't. Even with your Lord and Savior, Jim Harbaugh, you haven't done it yet. This is what pisses me off about Michigan fans. See, you got me all riled up. I see what you did there. You got me all riled up. This is what pisses me off about Michigan fans. Come on, people. Wake up. Smarten up.
Michigan ranked 5th. Wow.
This is such crap. Like, what is this based on? Honestly, what is it based on? Look at what happened last season. Do you realize Michigan State is bringing back the quarterback that they had last year who looked like a legit contender? Like, he was a guy who looked like he could possibly go to Alabama and play a game. Like, he can throw and he can run the ball. What are we talking about here? Honestly. I mean, if Mark D'Antoni was a little bit more freaking creative, it would be outstanding. Honestly. That's the biggest issue with Michigan State, is your head coach is not very creative. I don't really think that's that big of a deal, though, because the way he runs his offense, he's put guys like Le'Veon Bell into the NFL. And you know what? I think we can all agree Le'Veon Bell's probably the best damn running back in the NFL. On top of that, he's got quarterbacks who are setting the mark for how much a quarterback should get paid in the NFL. Thank you, Kirk Cousins. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Fully guaranteed 3-year contract. Thank you. Mm-hmm. I mean, let's talk about it. What is going on here? Athlon, where did you get off?
Okay.
Like, where?
Now, will you give me credit as being a media expert? No,
Sure.
but I will
Sure.
claim it. Here's what happened.
I'll give you credit.
Okay, I was hoping you would, but you didn't. But I'm a media expert, and here's what happened, okay?
I think expert's a strong word.
Okay.
Are you a member of the media? Ish. Ish.
Okay, I'm not a member of the media elite. I'm still a media intern. We'll go with that.
Okay, cool.
Okay. This publication, Athlon, has
Yes.
made our rundown on a podcast, and it's been talked about by a lot of people because people read it. And so it's pretty easy to see why they do it, because multiple people do it, and a lot of publications will insert Michigan pretty high. Why?
Yeah.
Because Michigan's fan base is rabid,
It's huge.
and you're sparking debate. So it's not that difficult to put Michigan in the top 10 because of two things. They got a quarterback, Shea Patterson. They got Jim Harbaugh. So all you got to do ethically is say, we believe that Michigan's going to do
But
good based on...
What do you know about Shea Patterson? How do you know he's going to even work in this offense? You don't know any of that.
film from Ole Miss.
I get that. His few
It was nice.
his few snaps that he had there. Yeah, I get it. Cool. All right, cool. But you don't know what he's going to do in this offense. You don't know what he's going to do, what this team's going to be. You have no idea.
It's not done based on logic. It's done to sell magazines.
Look, if
It's
you,
done to sell. It's not legit.
let me put to you like this, and
Legitimately.
and I'm going to put this.
Legitimately.
I'm going to put it this way to you too. All right. If I brought you what Michigan State did last year, and I brought you their roster this year, all right, that includes their quarterback who looked pretty damn good last year, and now I brought you Michigan and what they did last year. Insert Shea Patterson and whatever else they've got going on. You mean to tell me you're going to take Michigan over Michigan State?
I'd put Michigan third if I was a publication owner. Put them in third.
Not if you're a publication owner. Like,
personally, okay.
Legitimately.
You're asking me what I was going to ask you. Where legitimately would I put Michigan? I put them 15th, and I put Michigan State 14th. I put them right there. I put Michigan State just ahead, 14th, Michigan 15th. Objectively.
Okay.
But to sell, I would put Michigan third. I would have done it even higher and go, you know what? This is a big year. Karan Higgins could be a Heisman candidate. Chris Evans, that running game could be well. You have a renewed passion along the offensive line. You got Jim Harbaugh, who's won 10 games in his first couple years and done some things. Last year was an injury-plagued year, and it was a setback. So for the reason that we talked about, Athlon did this. They ranked Michigan 5th, and I think objectively we can say part of the reason why they did it was to draw hype and to get people to debate back and forth, because you got the Michigan lovers that are like 5th, we should be 4th, 3rd. we should be preseason number 1, baby.
Oh, man.
And you got us going, why is this number 5? Are you kidding me?
I love those fans. I
Those are
love
the best, right?
Because they're maniacs. Like,
It is.
They're the kind of people who sit there and fart in a room and they're like, "Oh, it doesn't stink at all in here." Like, yeah, it does. It smells like you just crapped your pants.
Yeah.
Like you're out of your mind. What are we talking about here? Yes, those fans are absolutely crazy. This frustrated me, and when I seen this, I was like, "Are you serious right now?" Like, if I'm Michigan State, I feel like that's disrespectful, and I feel like if you're a Michigan State fan, you should feel disrespected. If you're a Michigan fan, you can't take this serious. If you do, there's something wrong with you. There's no reason you should take this serious. Look at what your team did last year. Look what your team did the year before. You couldn't even go into Iowa and win a game in Iowa 2 years ago. What are we talking about here? Come on now. Come on. This blew my mind. I was like, really? Ranked 5th? Ranked 5th. How does that happen? How is Michigan State 12th? How?
That's good stuff.
I don't even understand it. They're returning a running back. They're returning a quarterback. They've got a decent offensive line. Their defense is going to be better this year. I firmly believe that Michigan State's going to have a very good defense, like top 25.
Real quick
I'm gonna put it
before-
out there right now. What is this? May 24th. I'm putting it out there right now.
Real quick before we take our first time out, all the talk about
happy
the trips.
anniversary to my wife, by the way.
Nice.
I didn't even realize what
Marriage?
day it was. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Do you think all the trips are overhyped, or is it just something that, look, it's good, you get some pub and you can bond with the crew? A lot of people are talking about it like, okay, you've taken the squad. It's been paid for, not by the university, by donors.
Mm-hmm.
They've dropped huge cash for these opportunities. I say it's good. I'd say the coverage is probably a little bit overhyped, but I think that it's a good experience. But I would, like I said, I'm more focused on winning. I think it's more important, and it kind of shows you that sometimes I'm more in the camp of substance over style. Right now, those trips are kind of viewed as too stylish.
I don't necessarily mind the trips. I think they're cool. Think about it this way: if you were a college athlete,
It'd be kind of cool to go on a trip
it would
with
be
the boys.
awesome,
Yeah.
right? It'd be cool to go check out Europe, to go hang out in Paris or whatever.
Right.
It would be cool to go to South Africa, wherever. It would be awesome. It'd be a great team bonding experience, and that's important. And I don't care what anybody says. If you've ever played athletics, it's important to bond with your team. all right, to bond with your teammates and to kind of become one with them. But I'm on the same page as you. This is all style points. I don't need style points. I need substance. I need some steak. I don't need the sizzle, all right? I need you to go out there and win. If this was me and I was Jim Harbaugh, I would be promising these trips to my team if they met A, B, and C. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, look, guys, if you want to go here, we've got to do this. You want to go here, we can go do this. If we do this, this is what we're going to do. Do you know what I'm saying? Make it a reward system. Use these trips as an advantage for yourself as a reward system to get this team to kind of dangle a carrot. Now, you shouldn't have to do this, but reward these guys for their play on the field. You're basically giving them a gift before the season even gets started. Go put the hard work in now. You know, you're able as a team to go and do these things. That means you can be either in a classroom, on a field, you can be going over tape. There are things that you could be doing otherwise instead of walking around the beaches of Normandy. Do you know what I'm saying? Or riding on top of an elephant if and when you go to South Africa. Don't need it right now. I need you to win games. I need you to sit there and take out Michigan State. I need you to take out Ohio State. It's going to be cool if you could sit there and walk all over Notre Dame. That'll be great if you could do that the very first week of the season. And then we can really start talking and get this hype train going and talk about how Shea Patterson's going to become president and how he's going to win the Heisman week 1. That would be cool. I would love it because I'd come in here and me and you would talk and it'd be great. It'd be a really good conversation. All right. But I don't need it right now. I don't need the sizzle. I need some steak. Let's go, boys. Let's do it. You know?
All right, some breaking news. We'll get to it regarding the NFL and their new established policy regarding the National Football League anthem and what they're going to do. It has come out just as we were recording this podcast. We'll talk about it, as well as thoughts on the Detroit Lions and early organized team activities. We'll break it all down next, as well as talking about Michigan State and the ruling regarding how much they're going to actually pay back the survivors of the Larry Nassar situation. Stay with us. Episode 250 is rolling right along. Doc and Jock here for our host site, Podomatic.com. When Adam and I first started this project, we were looking for a place to host all of our recorded audio. And thank goodness we found Podomatic. Why do we use them? Super easy, very easy to use. We record every single week. We have great guests on the phone, great guests visiting in studio, and boom, we take the audio, we upload it real quickly, 5-10 minutes, and everybody in the world, across the country and even overseas, can listen to it. You can't have Karan Higdon, you can't have Adam Carolla come on, and when you email them say, oh, I don't know what my link is. No, you got to send them the proper links so that when they push the button, some good quality audio comes out. That's how we've grown it. All the hosts here on the network, we're going to recommend one host site and one host site alone, Podomatic.com. All right, cuz, as we were recording, the NFL's new national anthem policy has come out. I'm going to give you the highlights. Basically, they've kind of upset a few people because of the word disrespect. Many people, including Colin Kaepernick, have come out and said, look, our anthem protest was really not about disrespecting the flag, but here are the highlights of the new policy. All team and league personnel on the field shall stand and show respect for the flag and the anthem. The game operations manual will be revised to remove the requirement that all players be on the field for the anthem. Personnel who choose not to stand for the anthem may stay in the locker room or in a similar location off the field until the anthem has been performed. A club will be fined by the league if its personnel are on the field and do not stand and show respect for the flag. Each club may develop its own work rules consistent with the above principles regarding its personnel who do not stand and show respect for the flag. The commissioner will impose appropriate discipline on league personnel who do not stand and show respect for the flag and the anthem. So it came down. It kind of does appear to be strong. Here's the thing, okay? I see your frustration, but here's the thing, cuz I know the other side will look at it and say,
I just hate Roger Goodell.
No, I like it. I like it thoroughly, and here's why, okay? I know those that are kneeling for the flag are saying, look, it's not about disrespecting the flag, but unfortunately,
it has nothing to do with the flag.
I know, but here's the thing. They're not talking to the athletes. Unfortunately, when a ruling is made, it's a business decision, okay? They've recognized, look, if our employees, these owners are looking at it, and Roger Goodell is looking at it and going, look, if our employees do this, this is what will happen. It's a little bit beyond what the message is. And the other side will say, no, the message is bigger. But unfortunately, the NFL is a business. And if you continue to fight that uphill climb and say, look, you know what, we need to do whatever we want, you can let the athletes do whatever. No, if you allow an NFL athlete to kneel during the anthem, you're affecting the bottom line. And unfortunately, the argument that you want to make, the appropriate argument is race relations more important than the bottom line? And the NFL is making a mistake here, probably by putting it out that, you know what, what's best for business is the bottom line. And that's what they're doing. What's best for business is putting a policy like this in place. Now, you can speculate and you can debate and say, look, no, race relations, human relations are more important. Unfortunately, for business people, it's not. And if you want to argue that and say it's wrong, you can have that debate. But I'm looking at it from the owner's perspective. When people kneel for the flag, you piss off the fans, you piss off some fans, you piss off those that are influencers. And unfortunately, if you want to go above this, talk to the influencers. Talk to those that say, I'm upset when players kneel and I'm going to pull my money. I won't spend if I see that. So if you want to go directly to that person, you can have that debate. But the NFL is not stupid. They recognize there could be some dollars lost. There could be some negative PR for the league, and we don't want that. We want it to be like this, and they've enacted a policy that's best for business. Is it best overall? You could have that debate, but I like the policy. It's fair. You don't want to come out and talk. You don't want to stand for the anthem. Stay in the locker room. It makes it much better. It's clear, and this is what should have been done probably right when Colin Kaepernick started doing this. You have to have a policy in place. This is the one that they've put out. I'm okay with it. I like it.
I like that they give the players and the personnel an option.
Exactly.
I like that, okay? But I just don't understand why you don't take it back to before 1992, before it was required to have the players stand on the sidelines. Just have them stay in the locker room for the national anthem. You avoid all of this. This is all a giant PR stunt. That's all it is. Players on the field for the national anthem, that didn't become a thing until after 1992, after the Persian Gulf War.
Yeah.
That was it. After that, it just became a PR stunt, and it was a way to sit there and bilk money out of like the USO, to sit there and bilk money out of the Army, to bilk money out of all of these military services that would do special things on the field. You know, when they show the guy parachuting into the stadium and he's bringing the game ball or he's bringing the FedEx, whatever it is, it's all PR. FedEx is paying for that. The Army is paying for that guy to parachute in. It's all about money. And you're right, it's all about the bottom line. This is the issue I have with the NFL. This is the issue I have with Roger Goodell, is he's just so blatantly upfront about, it's all about money, guys. Like, don't care about race relations. Don't care about you as a player. Don't care about what your cause is. And it's dollars or be damned. So here's the deal. This is what's going on.
And here's the thing. If you want to continue the social activism, go do it. That's it. Nobody's saying you don't have to be a social activist. All we're saying is, look, in this 3-minute window, 4-minute window, 5 sometimes, if somebody really wants to belt it out in a slow manner, for this 5 minutes, we want the athletes to show respect and stand. So I know the other side will say it's not about that. We're talking about more than that. But unfortunately, the man has come down and written this policy, and I do think it's fair and it's honorable, and you can go about your business.
The man's a clown who wrote it.
It's you may have your own personal opinions on the man who wrote it, but I think it's best for business, and it's something that everybody can follow. That's the rule. You don't have to like it, but you got to respect it, because teams are going to have issues. And you're now seeing, unfortunately, sometimes we have to step back from our own beliefs and go, look, what is the dominant force right now? And sometimes the dominant force is the man. And you don't have to like it. You don't have to really appreciate it, but you got to follow it. The man has some role. You can't just be like, I'm going to fight the man, and irregardless of what can happen. Colin Kaepernick sacrificed his career to further the cause of what he believes in. I have great respect for that. But if you had probably told him that was going to happen, he probably still would have did it. But in the end, you have to recognize, and others now do, that if you take that stand, you're probably risking your career. Others have seen it, and you have to know it going in. So you know, now new athletes that want to do it and their career might be in jeopardy, you now have a path. You now understand that could happen. Is it right? Probably not. I think Colin Kaepernick is probably one of the, at the time, one of the top 60 quarterbacks. He could be on a roster, but in the end, he sacrificed his career. Now everybody knows that, and I think it's pretty much been made well aware that there's probably a better avenue of seeking social activism than kneeling for the anthem. It's not the best way. I think it definitely brought attention. It's not the best way for your career. It's not the best way for business. Look, go out there, be an advocate 24/7. Just in that 5-minute window, stand for the anthem, and let's go. Let's kick off the game. That's what it should be.
Colin Kaepernick last year was probably closer to a top 20 quarterback.
You can have that debate. I don't think so.
Better than Trevor Siemian? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. He was a starter last year.
Okay. Yeah, you could have that argument. You could have that argument that he could have been at least maybe in the top 30, 31, 32. You could say
he could have been a starter in the league.
He could have been a starter in the league. I wish he would have been given that chance, but unfortunately, the way it played out was now, in terms of PR, in terms of that, I think his career's over, right? His career's done. He's not going to be on a field.
I don't see.
Yeah.
This is the issue. After it becomes a year, maybe 2 years, there's no way for you to really get it back and get back up to that game speed. It seems like once a player has that long off, that time period away, unless you're training like an absolute maniac and you're training with guys who can go at game speed or close to game speed, you never come back. You never really get it back.
Okay.
It's too difficult. And it sucks that, like you said, he basically lost his career because he wasn't even trying to make a political statement against the NFL or the flag. He was just making a political statement to help further a cause, to bring attention to something that was important.
Exactly. Now, let's switch gears, talk about the Detroit Lions. OTAs are kicking off. Tim Twentyman wrote an article on DetroitLions.com called 5 Things to Watch at OTA. And you looked at it and you thought it was a real good thing and had a lot of things that we could chomp into. One of the first things that was brought up was, where do you think Frank Ragnow, new first-round draft pick, where does he line up?
He has to line up at center,
right?
Doesn't he?
Natural position, yeah.
Like, he has to.
And
there's no way he can line up at guard.
From OTA, everyone's like, dude's legit.
I just don't understand how you can justify drafting him where you drafted him and then him not start day one as a center. I mean, if Graham Glasgow is that much better as a center than him, that Frank's got to move over and play guard, what does that say about where you drafted him and why you drafted him? To me, all right, and I think I've tried to explain this to you before. My thought process when it comes to drafting offensive linemen, I don't ever draft a guard. I don't ever draft a guard in the first round or in the second round, just because I feel like you can take a tackle, whether it be a left tackle or whether it be a right tackle, and a lot of times they can move inside. If you draft a guard, usually you draft a guard because he can play multiple positions, whether it can be center or it can be the guard position. So when I'm drafting an offensive lineman, I'm usually if I'm going to go first round, I'm usually going left tackle. And my left tackle, if he can't cut it as a left tackle, he can usually cut it as a right tackle. If he can't cut it as a right tackle, he can move inside and play guard. All right, and that's just kind of how I see offensive linemen. I don't know if it's maybe that I just devalue that position, and I don't even think I do. It's just I don't see why, unless this guy is revolutionary for the position, or he's going to be the guy for the next 20 years, and you can say that for sure. There's no reason why he's not going to be the most dominant force out there. I don't see why you necessarily draft a high-round draft pick in that position. And I'm probably going to get filleted for it. It's just the way I see it.
And a lot of people are also looking at, okay, just based on what we've seen early on, people are kind of seeing that it just kind of all signs point to some kind of hybrid version of a 3-4 defense, right? People are seeing that, okay, it might not be 3-4 every single play, but it's going to be like a hybrid defense that's going to be situationally based, but with fundamentals from the 3-4.
Yeah, if you look at the way they drafted, they didn't really address anything along the defensive line. You picked up Deshaun Hand, and that was like your one pick. They went heavy linebacker in free agency. Didn't do anything else really as far as the front seven besides Deshaun Hand in the draft. So to me, it screams 3-4. It screams your base defense going forward will be a 3-4, and you're going to look to add a linebacking core that's athletic, that can get to the quarterback. You're looking to add guys on that front line who can basically clog and fill up space. and just kind of win one-on-one and one-on-two battles everywhere you go. The way that they drafted and the way that they address free agency leads me just to this. It's got to be a 3-4. I don't see any version of a 4-3. On top of it, they invested so heavily in their secondary. You know what I'm saying? I mean, a third-round pick, you go out there and you pick up Tracy Walker, and me and you weren't very happy about that pick.
Who?
Exactly. And I think the media guys were all the same way.
I think he was the last guy to sign too, right? I think he was one of the last ones to sign his contract.
It just to go and you add another that high, third round. That's the second day. You're adding this guy, and when I say this guy, I legitimately mean like, who is this guy? Nobody knew who this guy was, but you went out and you added him. So you got a beefed up secondary. It's filled. You got like 10 guys back there. So to not add at that time a piece to your front seven, it screams 3-4 to me. And you're going to lean heavily on that secondary.
Okay, now we'll do this in a quick hitter lightning kind of way. I do think there are some valuable information, valuable questions to ask here, but in the value of time, because I know we want to spend a little bit of time, a little extra on Larry Nassar and the Michigan State $500 million payment. So we'll go through it quickly. Who do you think is getting the majority of the touches in the backfield at the running back spot?
It's got to be Kerryon Johnson.
Yep.
Kerryon Johnson, and then it's going to be LeGarrette Blount.
Yes or no? Does Kerry Hyder Jr. have a bounce-back season? For those that don't recall, for those that don't remember, he was injured last year. 2 years ago, he had a breakout season as an undrafted free agent.
I think so. And Achilles is hard to come back from, but I think so.
Contribute a couple sacks here and there. Disruption. That's what he needs to do.
He's going to be disruptive. And it's going to probably be different for him because he's not playing that 4-3 end. He's playing that probably going to play that 3-4 end, or he'll be a stand-up linebacker.
Year 2 for Kenny Galladay. Does he become all-day Galladay for the Detroit Lions?
He's got to, right? He's got to.
I feel like the comfort level with Marvin Jones is there. I think that he's going to take a step, but I think the key phrase in that question is significant weapon. I think 4 touchdowns, maybe 800 yards, maybe in that 50 to 70 carry range. I feel like Marvin Jones, and in terms of, because look at it like this. If you look at it objectively, they're going to run the ball more, less touches for Kenny. You're going to have to, establish a deep ball sometimes. That's probably going to be a little bit more split with him and Marvin Jones. And then Golden Tate is the yards guy. He's going to want the ball. So I feel like what's going to be hard is he's going to have to fight for it. He's going to have to tell, you know what, maybe once or twice in the media, he's got to be like, give me the damn ball. I need it.
Do you think that when they're like 15 yards and in, I feel like he should be the prime target because he's so tall, he's so long.
Right.
He can win those jump ball battles.
I think they can
Send
get
him
that
to
with
the back of the end zone.
It's safer with a tight end and a running back.
You think?
I think that's what they're going to do. I think when you look at the offense from Jim Bob Cooter, they try to get those extra 5-6 yards through the running back pass. I think they'll do that a little bit more. So Kenny Galladay, I think, is going to be targeted, but maybe not as much as we think. Significant weapon is the phrase. Is it going to be utilized more? He takes a step, but significant weapon, I would disagree. I say no.
See, I think at certain times last season, he showed the ability to catch a 15-yard slant and take it all the way to the house. I think you're going to see a little bit more of that. I think once you get into that red zone, I think he's going to be the first read option. He's going to be the guy, but like, look, get to the back of the end zone, we'll throw it up to you, you catch it. It would kind of be similar to that Calvin Johnson style where he went right to the back, he went to the corner pylon, and they just tossed it up, and he had to go win the jump ball. I think it's going to be something similar with him. I think he does take a significant step forward. I don't know if we're talking about him as a top 10 or a top 25 wide receiver in the league, but I think he takes a significant step forward.
Which tight end will be the starter, do you think?
Luke Wilson? I mean, I want to say Luke Wilson, right?
Okay.
But Luke Wilson is like Ebron, and he had the same drop rate, wasn't utilized as much. I think he might be a better blocker.
If not, it'll be a competition, I think, between him and Roberts.
Yeah, it's got to be one of those two, right?
I think so.
And it'd be nice to see Michael Roberts take that step forward and become the guy.
What we'll look for in the preseason is blocking. I think that will distinguish the thing is that if you're going to run the ball a lot more, then whoever's going to end up being able to block in the run game is going to definitely give you a leg up. Finally, what kind of impact does Tease Tabor have on this Detroit Lions team?
He's got to be better than just being a nickel corner out there. You've seen as the season wound down, he got more playing time last year, and he looked to be a little bit more comfortable. I want him competing for a starting job this year. I want him out there competing to be line up opposite of Darius Slay. If he can do that, that's huge. That's significant. And if he can show the ability to sit there and win those one-on-one battles when he's lined up across from a receiver, that's going to be awesome. Until I see that, I just have him as a nickel cornerback right now. Basically, I think Quandre Diggs is probably going to be moved to safety. I think they're going to play a lot of cover 3. So you have 3 guys back there, and I don't know what he's going to be. I think he's just a rotational piece right now.
Man, I love talking Detroit Lions, man. Talking football, talking what's going on with the NFL, seeing how the Lions are going to adjust to the issue with Matt Patricia, seeing how this is going to play off. Can we get to freaking August already? I love it, man. I want to
rush through summer, man.
I want to rush through the summer, but good stuff. Very good assessments. We'll continue to peek at OTAs and what the Lions are doing. Definitely, you can find in-depth Lions talk here on Doc and Jock, or follow us if you've disagreed with any of our assessments. Follow Adam at AdamRSTROZ. Follow us on the network at Detroit Podcast. Message us anytime with anything that you hear on the show or anything that we tweet out every single day. All right, final timeout. We come back. We got to address it. It was brought up last week after we recorded, and we'll definitely talk about it. Larry Nassar and Michigan State, a ruling came down. A settlement was reached. Adam and I will talk about it and break it all down next. Thanks, everybody, for your continued support. We wouldn't have been able to grow this network to where we are without your support. Free and easy way to support us, DetroitSportsPodcast.com. It's where you can go to find out what show airs when. You can see all the great guests that have come and visit us here in the studio. You can take care of all your online shopping needs. Look, if you're going online, you're shopping at Amazon, just make one quick stop to DetroitSportsPodcast.com, click through the Amazon banner, and it helps to keep the lights on, the microphones hot here in our Sterling Heights studio. If you listen to the Karan Higdon interview, he came in and was like, wow, this is something totally different than I thought coming in here. And that's largely due to the fact that we're supported by you guys. Thank you so much. We greatly appreciate it. Free and easy way to support us. Just go visit the website, DetroitSportsPodcast.com. And for those of you that already are our great supporters, thank you. We greatly appreciate it, and we know it. When things come up, we know when we joke around, you even flatter us with your comments. I really appreciate it when we're joking around. When I was at Motor City Comic-Con, taking a picture of myself, people said, look, hey, if I was there, I'd definitely shower you guys with some beer and things like that. That's fun and things like that. But if I was there, I'd have at least 2 people there, at least going, who's this guy with the lights on in his name? Jesus. But good stuff. We are able to have fun with this project because of you guys. Thank you so much. DetroitSportsPodcast.com. All right, cuz a settlement was reached. The number was $500 million will be spread across the survivors of the Larry Nassar abuse. And what has happened and what will distinguish how much a survivor gets is the frequency of the abuse, how long. And so the survivors are going to have to obviously present, the level of abuse that took place, and that will dictate roughly what they will earn and things like that. So it has been dissected a little bit because of the fact that it kind of looks like, Michigan State still, in terms of the way they've talked about it, in terms of helping the victims, it kind of just looks like a business decision is the way a lot of people are describing it. It's like, look, we settled it, we're done. And more people are like, okay, that's the starting point. That's the number. Fine. That's the retribution for what Michigan State did. Now, what's more important is, and what more journalists are going to stay up with is, what have you done with your policies? And Michigan State continues to come across as tone deaf because the same people are on the board, the same kind of things are taking place. Engler's not verbalizing in the best way avenues of showing like this is not ever going to happen again. And so a lot of people are like, look, show us that you're serious. Get rid of all the people that were there while all this was going on. How does this even form? How do you let this problem fester this long? And I think supporters of Michigan State say, look, some people have to be held accountable, and it hasn't. Just by, being able to go into court and, determine a dollar amount, that's step one. And I think that's where the disconnect is between the supporters and Michigan State. Michigan State's like, okay, settlement, non-disclosure, we're done. We don't want to talk about this anymore. Whereas supporters and people on the outside are like, no, this is just beginning because the money value was just a given. You knew you were getting sued. You knew you were paying something out. Now show us and convince us, which is the valid point. convince Doc, convince the supporters that this will never happen again. And when you have the same people in place that have been there when there was toxicity, sometimes, look, some members of the board were not implicit in this. They were not part of it. But unfortunately, collectively, as a unit, the board of trustees failed the university. It's time for a new change, a new regime, a new set of eyes looking at Michigan State. And so I applaud those that are continuing to harp on Michigan State to say, look, the settlement was just step one. And I think Michigan State, the perception is they want to button it up and keep it moving. And that's not going to happen. It's not.
I think the word that you use, tone deaf, I think that is so accurate to describe what's going on at Michigan State. You're right. The number is just kind of the starting point. This is, you kind of have some guidelines now where you're going to go with this. All right, so here, we're going to pay this out. And now it's, what do you do after this? How do you address your policies? How do you make this bad situation right? And I don't think Michigan State has done a good job either initializing a plan, putting a plan together, or just going out there and trying to be, I guess, transparent with the victims in this case. Engler does not seem like he's the right guy to be at the forefront of all of this. Do you know? I could see him, once all this gets said and done, I could see Michigan State doing away with him very quickly. He's kind of the fall guy. You'll be the guy who's going to have to sit there and handle all this, and then you got to boot him. Because he is a PR nightmare. You know, the things he says, the things he does. What do you make of this? The judge who presided over the entire Larry Nassar case. Was it Judge Rosemary? I'm gonna hack her last name. Quillen, I believe. She's gone on record and she's basically said that he does not deserve to be the guy in power right now. They need to replace him. They need to move him out. She was quoted as saying he's been more interested in putting his people in the university than looking at the actual problem and helping to address them. What do you make of that? Because I don't think Engler needs to be there. I think he's the wrong guy. He doesn't have... There's a way to do things with tact, and he has no tact.
Yeah, it's a challenge with John Engler because of the fact that he's deeply embedded in, a political system. It's viewed as political. Yes, there's some nepotism going on and things like that. And the reason why people are upset is it's not objective. Mm-hmm. In that John Engler's pro-Michigan State. He's a politician. He's a lawyer. He's a guy that is trying to do what's best for Michigan State as a PR. And people are like, look, he also has some conflicts of interest screaming all over the place. And unfortunately for John Engler, he's trying to do a job, and you can respect what he's trying to do, but the objective is different. That's the problem, is that two different entities have two different objectives. Mm-hmm. Michigan State wants to blow this over and get back to business at hand with sports and the university and things like that. Whereas the other side is like, hey, what's the process? Let's talk about it every day. Let's look at how we can prevent this from happening. Let's deeply take a look and rip the scab all over the place and talk about who, what, where, when, how, all day long, and process it and definitely eradicate the even thought that it could happen again. That's where one side is. The other side, Michigan State, what they have to do is not go to that where it's 24/7, but take a step towards the right way of doing it. You can't have blinders on, and you can't wait for time to heal this. It's not time. It's going to be action. It's going to be dialogue. It's going to be trust. And when you have John Engler, who it's known has conflicts of interest all over the place, then you have issues. And when you've had the way he's talked to some survivors, it just hasn't been done right on any level. And so, and John Engler's issue. Old. He's an old dude. So he's coming from an older mindset. We just need a little bit more of a progressive idea on how to handle this going forward for the university.
See, my biggest issue, and he lost me when he cornered a victim in an elevator and was like, what's your number? Yeah. What's your number? Give me a number. What?
We don't need more attorneys talking this through.
Yeah, like how crass are you? You know, like what is your major malfunction? What aren't you getting here?
Right,
like,
that's the problem.
There is a systematic issue and a bigger issue at play here as far as the university goes and how they conduct their policies and procedures for these situations. And you don't even want to look at that. You want to talk about what my number is?
Yeah,
Get the hell out of here.
And we can kind of identify why, okay? Because there's a disconnect between a business-minded attitude and a compassionate attitude. A compassionate attitude is one where you go...
You need a leader who's got both, and he does not.
Yes, exactly. And what happens is he's aware as a businessman, and the reason you have to be aware of where your opponent's at in a chess game. The opponent is thinking, look, if we come out and are reconciling and talking about this from that perspective, that number might have been $2 billion. So he's
Well, you
also
don't
has
have to
a
say anything.
No, you don't. But I'm saying in terms of why they maybe are not as compassionate and why their Michigan State and John Engler are taking themselves as defendants, and they're trying to limit as much damage as they can. And if they come out and acknowledge too much, then the response and the responsibility to pay back goes way up. If we say we were wrong at this, we were wrong at that. So they have to put up a little bit of a defense. And so that's where the delicate balance is in this, in that Michigan State's in the wrong. And what they're trying to do, unfortunately, they have to do it. And I'm not saying what John Engler's tasked with is easy, or anybody there, is the appropriate amount of conciliatory damage control versus what are we going to do next. And I think there is a fine balance in that. And now it can start, because once that number was met, okay, we got the number. Now every day you should be coming out with, we are taking this step today to making sure it doesn't happen again.
Do you think that number, the $500 million is fair? Because if you look at what happened with Penn State and Jerry Sandusky,
here's my personal opinion on it.
That is closer to almost $10.1 million per victim.
Yeah.
This will break down.
What, two?
If you do the math, no, less than that. It's like
One.
It's like $1 million per victim.
See, for
and
me,
then they're holding some back just in case more victims come.
Yeah, my personal opinion is I don't comment on how much a monetary value is when someone is hurt psychologically. I don't. For me as a psychologist, I don't put a money value on that. I say provide somebody with strong help, ensure that this never happens again. I personally am opposed to financial settlements for victims because it opens up, not everybody, but it opens up the opportunity for nefariousness and false allegations. So for me personally, I don't know how to put a monetary value on somebody's hurt. It's just hurt. And I'm more invested in what's Michigan State doing. It's a number that's litigated among lawyers who I'm not super fond of all the time anyway. So for me, I don't know how you value, if I'm hurt, how much that means to me. It could be 1 million, 5 million, 10 million. I'm more of the opinion that, monetary settlements is not really what's in anyone's best interest for me personally. But in the end, it draws up another issue, is that Michigan State as a business is likely not going to pay it out of their pocket. They're going to jack up the price for students.
Yeah.
And so
that's an issue.
And so to look at it from that perspective, Michigan State has basically funds of like $2 billion just sitting there in the bank. It's called like a dowry and things like that, where they've taken donations and kept it aside and things like that. They have it to give. But in essence, a certain percentage of that $500 million is going to probably come from an increase in tuition, some increased prices and things like that, from donations and things like that. So a lot of people are upset by that, knowing that there's a chance the $500 million could be paid out by the increase in tuition. But unfortunately, for Michigan State, they got to look at it like a business. They can't just be giving away $500 million. They have to have funds. They have to run the operation of Michigan State. So that's why this whole notion of a settlement and money makes it murky, because Michigan State, unfortunately, they have to raise the money. They have to maybe raise prices along the way to give back to the victims. And that's why, too, states. I don't think.
Real
fast, I want to get this point across.
Okay.
Real fast. States, like when people sue police and things like that. You think the police actually pays $5 million settlement? No. The jurisdictions, it gets passed on to us. So that's a double whammy. Whereas now you and I are paying for the victims. So it's a double whammy.
Yeah, I don't think it should be passed on to the students. Like, if you want to pass it on to the taxpayer, as a taxpayer in this state, I'm not really for that, but I understand, because it's got to come from somewhere, right? All that being said, I feel like Michigan State needs to pay more than half of it. They got to pay at least 65 to 75% of it. You screwed up. You messed up. You have to pay the penalty. This comes to you. And look, they're already talking about laying off certain faculty members and staff. And look, it sucks to lose your job, but hey, Michigan State screwed up. This should be coming out of, like you said, their dowries, any type of money that has been basically allocated for whatever it was that they were in the process of, I'm assuming, building a brand new building. All universities are always building brand new buildings. You go to Oakland University, they're always building brand new buildings, and that's a much smaller university than Michigan State. So I know they've got at least 3 buildings going up. Guess what? We're stopping building those buildings. They're just going to be half built for a while now, because that's where that money's got to come from. That money should not be passed on to the students. nor should that really be passed on to the taxpayers. That's got to be Michigan State's cross to bear. That's got to be their burden. You know, you got to pull some stuff from your football team. Hey, you screwed up. You got to pull some stuff from your gymnastics team. Sucks for them because they were the ones who were initially hurt by all of this, and now they're getting a double whammy. Sorry, but it's got to come from somewhere. Do you know what I'm saying? Hey, Izzo, your Izzone's going to get a little bit smaller. Money's got to come from somewhere. It shouldn't be going from the students to the university, and it shouldn't be coming from the taxpayers. And that's an issue I have.
Yeah, going forward, what one thing can Michigan State do to move this forward? Because solutions are hard, but I do think they do have to, when they address the public and survivors, they have to take a tone of reconciliation. They have to stop making it a battle. They have to allow for the healing to take place. And I do think they have to, if they want to really focus on something, they have to look at management. You have to look at who's in charge and allow for proper management in place, because this can all be moving in the right direction with better management. So let's get on it.
Yeah, I think going forward, you have to find a new leader who understands the lay of the land, not just business. You got to see it from all angles. You can't just see the tree. You got to see the forest. He comes in or she comes in, and basically she blows out that board of the faculty, the board of regents, all of them. You basically have to come in and clean house. You got to start fresh.
Clean house and let's start fresh.
It's the only way. I mean, if you had a festering wound on your arm, right? What would we have to do? We'd have to clean it out.
Got to clean it out. Address it and clean it.
The only way.
Exactly.
So this is a festering wound. Clean it out.
Clean it out. Great podcast, sir. 250 episodes down, as fun as it was when we recorded episode number 1. Let's keep it going, baby. Thanks, everybody. You listen to Doc and Jock, episode 250 every Thursday. You know, you dial it up. You dial up the internet. You're going to find Doc and Jock spewing everything related to Detroit sports. Awesome, sir. I appreciate your time, man.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate it. Let's go. Where do we want to go? You want to go Vegas Knights? You want to go Caps? You want to go Lightning? You want to go Rockets? Hey, let's just go. Let's just go finals. How about that?
Let's go finals, baby. Here we go. Championship time.
This was locker room talk.
Second deck.
Sorry, Detroit. Didn't quite work out.
And all I can say is Detroit Sports Podcast scores.
I hear voices in my head. They counsel me. They understand. They talk to me.